Hi guys, Jack from Fantasy Can here, back at school, back at the dorms, and you know those parents that buy their kids swim shoes? I just feel like they hate their children. And this is this week's episode of Fantasy Can. Hey everybody, week one's right around the corner, all our drafts are done, and we're all ready to start the season. My apologies if anyone drafted Jerry McKinnon. I'm very sorry. So this week, we're going to start off with just our rankings. This is a new series that I'm going to want to put out every week. It's going to be just simply like me going over rankings, stardom, sit-ems, some players that are doing good, some players that are just maybe streaky. So I want to be able to let you guys know about how that's going to work and give you a format for what we're going to go off later. So for this episode, we're going to start with the rankings. So let me just pull those up. Now, just to remind you guys, all of these rankings are full on the website, so if you want to go over there and check out the rest of them, this is just going to be a quick top 10 list of each player for rankings this week. If you want the full in-depth thing, I'm going to leave a link in the bio and you guys can check that out. Jumping into this, we're going to look at quarterbacks, and I got Rodgers coming in first, followed by Brady, Watson, Breeze, Newton, which really is not a surprise for a top 5. Rodgers is the number 1 quarterback in most drafts. Brady's playing the Texans, and I think that Watson, who is right below him, is going to give him a good offensive game where they're just going to be throwing the ball a lot and there's not going to be a whole lot of defense, or at least that's what I'm hoping for. That's what we're all hoping for. Breeze follows. In finishing up the top 5, we have Cam Newton, who's going to be at Dallas. I think that's a pretty good matchup for him. I mean, Dallas is looking on, they're going to be on the come up pretty soon, but also I just really like the Panthers and what their offense looks like this year, especially if they want to use the new wide receiver or DJ Moore, or if they want to use McCaffrey more, or just their whole offense should be revamped and better than last year. So I'm really liking Cam this year as well. Followed up at 6, we got Kirk Cousins, who is up against San Francisco, so we know that they don't have the best defense, so things are looking all right. Following him, we got Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers, then Jared Goff. Now, Goff is kind of an interesting person to put in the top 10, just because most people don't really see him as a top 10 quarterback. So I really do have a lot of faith in him, but at the same time, though, it does seem weird to put Jared Goff in the top 10 for rankings for week 1. Now this brings us to running backs. First, we're going to take a look at Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley led the league in points last year among fantasy running backs, and I'm just expecting him to have a really good start to his season in Oakland. I think he'll be able to pull that one off easy. David Johnson coming in off his injury. I think he'll be just fine. Playing Washington, remember that was a hand injury. It was not a leg injury, so he should be just as good running the ball, or maybe not just as good, but definitely still there. So at the time of recording this video, we still don't know Le'Veon Bell's current status of his contract, but as of right now, I have him at 3, and that would probably just, if he didn't play this week, it would just bump everybody else up 1 spot. Following that, I have Alvin Kamara. Big fan of him this year, coming against Tampa, only running back there. I like it a lot. Fournette, then coming in with Gordon, Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, McCaffrey, then Barkley. Barkley, I'm not really sure what to think about, especially because he doesn't have the most favorable matchup playing Jacksonville. But I'm still thinking that he'll have a decent first game, nothing too crazy, but he is talented enough to where he should be able to put up a couple points. So next, wide receivers coming up. DeAndre Hopkins, really no need for justification there, considering what he has been doing, especially last season, and he's back at New England, and he did pretty well when he was there last time, so I'm expecting, some big fireworks coming from him. Antonio Brown, and Brown might just honestly sneak his way to the top spot if Le'Veon Bell doesn't play, but as of right now, I have him at 2. Then we have Michael Thomas coming in at Tampa, which I really like because, Tampa's really not that great of a team. AJ Green, rounding out the 4th spot. Julio Jones, then, who's on Thursday Night Football, I have at 5. Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams is next. OBJ is at 8. Now, and that's really only because of who he's playing with Jacksonville. It's going to be a tough game for him because they have Jalen Ramsey there, and they are just a very good team overall and very good defense. Then after that, I have Stephon Diggs, who I think is really underrated in this year in general, and might be someone that, like, if you have enough for him, trade for him. I think that you would definitely be making the most out of what you have. Next on the list, we're running at the 10th spot, is Mike Evans. And we're not really sure how exactly he's going to do, considering he doesn't have Jameis Winston with him. But I think that he's still a talented enough wide receiver to where he should be able to put up some big numbers because, I mean, he's just a really good player. Leading into the next one, we have tight ends. And no big surprise here, we're putting Gronk right at the top of the list because why wouldn't he be? Because Gronkowski is just a really good player as it is. He's just an absolute stud. He's able to pull down pretty much anything that Brady can throw to him. And because he has Brady throwing him the ball and he's the top target right now in the offense, with Edelman being gone, I'm really not too worried about him. Next, we have Zach Ertz, who's playing in Atlanta. We have Nick Foles throwing the ball, which is still just fine for him. It's not going to affect his value too much. Carson Wentz might like him a little bit more than Foles does, but either way, he's going to be your number 2 ranked tight end this week. Following him, we have Travis Kelce. Not a big surprise. He's playing the Chargers this week, and Mahomes is his first start, so he's probably going to look for his tight end. So I'm thinking that he will actually get a lot of targets. Next, we have Greg Olsen playing the Cowboys. Kyle Rudolph coming in at number 5. Delaney Walker at 6. Jimmy Graham at 7, which I'm not completely sure if that's the right spot for him because I don't know exactly what role he's going to have in the offense because or how the Bears are going to do because we really haven't done anything. Obviously, the addition of Khalil Mack was big for their defense. That might make it a little bit harder for the Packers just to play. But as of right now, I'm just thinking that Jimmy Graham is just like a Packers tight end who might just catch a touchdown. I'm not expecting any big things from him as of right now. Next, we have Evan Ingram, and I like him a lot this year, but the only reason I'm so low is because he's playing Jacksonville, and you guys talked about before, really tough defense. Then we have Trey Burton on the Bears, who's going to be playing the Packers, so we'll see how that one goes. Then number 10 on our list is Jack Doyle, and he's playing the Cincinnati Bengals. So defenses, I'm just going to run through real quick, just because there doesn't need to be a whole lot of explaining. All you really need to do is play the matchups for this. I got Jacksonville playing New York, Rams playing Oakland. We got the Ravens, Saints, Lions, Broncos, Vikings, Panthers, Chargers, and Eagles. So now that we got the rankings out of the way, I want to show you guys some start sits for this week. So we're going to start off with quarterbacks, and we're going to look at Matt Stafford. So Stafford's matchup this week is against the Jets. Their defense really isn't the best, but we all kind of already knew that. I'm thinking that they're mostly going to be trying to throw the ball, but they're also going to want to test out their running backs, so it might not be the best spot, but for what you're looking at, especially for daily fantasy sports, Stafford's a great pick to go for week 1. Following Stafford, we have Kirk Cousins. Really not a hard choice there either. He's looking great this week. I have him ranked at number 6, and I'm really expecting some big things from his first game as a Viking, especially because they're playing the 49ers this week, and they just are not really a sound team yet. They're working on it, they're becoming better, but as of right now, they really haven't proven anything, and so I'm just going to assume that they're like the same team they were last year, and I think that Cousins will be throwing all over them. On the opposite end of the spectrum, for sits, for quarterbacks, I actually have the quarterback of the other team, Jimmy Garoppolo, on sits. I know that he's looking pretty good, and he might just end up being a breakout player this year, but I still don't think that it's a smart idea to just go in guns blazing week 1 and start him. If you have another option, I would definitely use it. But if you're forced to play Jimmy G, that's really not the worst situation to be in, considering he's been able to do a lot of good with what he has. But as of right now, I'm thinking we just wait on Jimmy G for week 1, see what happens. Next up is another young guy. We got Mahomes, and I just don't like that because the Chargers defense is getting a lot better, and it's his first start of his NFL career with no backup. That's on his heels. So I'm really expecting some like road bumps for Mahomes along the game. I think that he's eventually going to figure it out, but to start off against that good of a Chargers defense, it really is not ideal. So going into running backs, the first person I'm going to look at is Joe Mixon. He's playing the Indianapolis Colts, and they really haven't gotten a whole lot better with stopping the run. They're mostly focused on getting Andrew Luck back. That was our main goal of the season. At least it seemed like it was. So I'm expecting our running backs still to be able to run all over the Colts defense. So Joe Mixon, it's looking like it's a good time for him to step up and become the player that a lot of people think he's going to be. Next running back on the start list is Derrick Henry. Henry, I think, is just going to be good this year because I think they're finally giving him the lead back role, and I think that's what he needs to really excel in this league, and I think he's going to. So his first game as lead back, playing the Dolphins. I don't love the matchup. I don't hate it. I definitely like it more than I dislike it. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do this week, and I'm thinking he's going to be doing pretty good. So for running backs, to start off, I decided to pick Alfred Morris for sits. This reasoning was mostly just because he's playing the Vikings this week, and that's going to be a real tough game for him because of how good their defense is. So I'm not really expecting them to run the ball too often. And I guess when I put Morris on this list, I'm also putting the other running back, like all 49er running backs on that list. But I'm just not expecting anything really good from San Francisco's running game week 1 against the Vikings. Next player I have on the do not start list for running backs is Tevin Coleman, I guess because he's playing the Eagles and he already isn't the featured back in that offense, so I don't really want to mess with it. I think that he won't be terrible this season. I think he's going to have a similar one to what he had last year, where he's really not like anything too special, but like spot start, he might be good. So I really don't think that this is one of those weeks where you start him, and I think that you should just stay away from starting Coleman or thinking about starting Coleman this week. That brings us to wide receivers. First guy on the list for starts, Juju Smith-Schuster, looking really good playing Cleveland. This guy is young. He's going to be the face of the Browns at some point, probably lead receiver at some point when Antonio Brown goes away, and I'm thinking he's going to be pretty good this week when you look at the possibility of Le'Veon Bell not being there. But even if he is, that whole Steelers offense is just always good. You got him against if you have a good matchup for him, you should just play him. So I'm cheating a little bit when I do this, but I'm putting both of the Lions wide receivers on this list for starts. Marvin Jones and Golden Tate both look like they have good matchups for this week against the Jets. And because that defense really isn't that sound, I'm expecting them to be able to carve it up pretty easily, and Stafford's definitely going to be able to get it to him. Sits on wide receivers, sit Sammy Watkins. Don't want anything to do with him, especially when Mahomes is right there in that situation that I talked about earlier. You don't want to play Sammy Watkins this week because I'm not even convinced he's going to be a good player for fantasy football at all. So stick away from Sammy Watkins, especially week 1. Next on the list is Marquise Goodwin. Very talented wide receiver. There's no doubting that. He's really fast. But the only thing is, right now, with the 49ers going up against the Vikings, really tough defense. And it's going to be a hard time for Garoppolo to get the ball out to him, especially when he has Xavier Rhodes covering him. So I really don't want to mess with Marquise just yet. But I do think that later on in the season, he's going to be a very valuable player to have. Lastly, we're going to go to tight ends. Start off, we're going to go Rudolph. So he's looking like he's going to have a good season with Kirk Cousins this year, or at least I think so, just because of what he's been able to do with quarterbacks in the past. And we all know that Kirk Cousins definitely likes throwing to his tight ends. And not to mention they are playing San Francisco this week, which I've talked about already earlier, which I think is going to be a little bit rough for the 49ers. But Rudolph would be a good start, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to pick him in daily fantasy sports as well. Next up, Jack Doyle, Cincinnati matchup this week. He's a tight end for the Colts, which I talked about earlier. He's ranked number 10 on rankings for tight ends. I'm expecting him to do pretty good. I don't think he's going to be like amazing, but he's a good person to have for the week, and especially daily fantasy. Cheap option, shouldn't be too much. You just throw him in there, he might be able to get you a touchdown or two. So for sits, I'm just going to follow the theme, stay away from the 49ers. I don't want to touch Kittle this week because of just how crazy this Vikings defense is. So I really just want to stay far away from him. Also, I want to stick away from Jordan Reed just because we don't know what he's up to at all. He might be good, he might be bad, we don't really know. And Alex Smith is coming in for the first week, so I want to give it some time before we pull the trigger on him. So I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of Fantasy Can. Thank you so much for sitting down and watching, listening to me talk about these fantasy football players and rankings. I really hope that you guys get out to a good start week 1, get that first stub. It's always big, it's always a statement. But if it doesn't work out for you, highly recommend that you should just really scour the waiver wire, look at people who might be good, and just pick up someone who you think can help your team later on this year. Okay, guys, this concludes the first episode from the dorm. Please remember to like, share, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Blow our social media up. Ask us questions when it comes Sunday on our Twitter, and we'll be answering you. So thank you guys so much for watching again, and I will catch you guys later.